Judge Maria Santos looked up from her papers as the bailiff called the next case. Case number 47 to 2891. Richardson versus Chun. Step forward, please. A young woman in her late 20s, clutching a manila folder, approached the plaintiff's table. Across from her, an older man in a pressed shirt nervously adjusted his glasses. Ms. Richardson, you're suing Mr. Chun for $5,000. Tell me what this is about, Judge Santos said, leaning back in her chair. Your Honor, 6 months ago, I hired Mr. Chun to remodel my kitchen. He's a contractor who came highly recommended by my neighbor. We signed a contract. I paid him half upfront, $2,500, and he promised to complete the work in 4 weeks. And did he complete the work? No, Your Honor. He started strong for about 2 weeks, then just disappeared. He won't return my calls, won't answer my texts. My kitchen is torn apart. I can't cook. I can barely use my sink. I've been eating takeout for 4 months. Judge Santos turned to Mr. Chun. Mr. Chun, what's your side of this story? Mr. Chun cleared his throat. Your Honor, I did start the job. I removed the old cabinets. I began the plumbing work. But there were complications. What complications? The house is old. When we opened up the walls, we found mold. Serious mold. Black mold. I told Ms. Richardson that we needed to address this first, that it would cost extra, and she refused to pay. That's not true, Ms. Richardson interjected. Ms. Richardson, you'll get your turn. Mr. Chun, continue. I couldn't continue the work safely with that mold. It's a health hazard. I told her it would be another $2,000 to remediate it properly, and she said no. So I had to stop the work. Judge Santos looked at Ms. Richardson. Did he tell you about mold? He mentioned something about moisture in one area, but he never said black mold. He never gave me a written estimate for any additional work. And Your Honor, I had an independent inspector come out last week. She pulled papers from her folder. According to this report, there is no black mold. There's some minor water staining, but nothing that would require remediation. May I see that report? The bailiff took the document to the judge. Judge Santos studied it carefully, her expression unreadable. Mr. Chun, do you have any documentation of this mold you claim you found? Photos? A written estimate for the remediation? I took some pictures on my phone, but I think I deleted them. You deleted evidence of a serious health hazard that would cost your client $2,000 to fix? I needed space on my phone. Judge Santos raised an eyebrow. Mr. Chun, I've been doing this for 15 years. Do you know how many contractors I've seen come through here with that exact story? Let me guess, you took on another job, a bigger job, and Ms. Richardson's kitchen wasn't as profitable, so you moved on. No, Your Honor, that's not. Don't interrupt me. Do you have any proof whatsoever that you attempted to contact Ms. Richardson about this alleged mold issue? I called her. Phone records. I don't have them with me. Of course you don't. Ms. Richardson, do you have your phone records? Yes, Your Honor. She handed over another document. These show all calls and texts from the past 6 months. Mr. Chun called me 3 times in the first 2 weeks. Nothing after that. I called him 17 times. I sent 23 text messages. No response. Judge Santos examined the records. Mr. Chun, I'm looking at these records. I see her calls to you. Where are your calls to her about this mold emergency? Mr. Chun shifted his weight. Maybe I called from a different phone. What different phone? A work phone. Where is this work phone now? I don't have it anymore. Judge Santos set down the papers and looked directly at Mr. Chun. Let me tell you what I think happened here. I think you took Ms. Richardson's money, you started the job, and then something more lucrative came along. Maybe you needed the money for something else. Maybe you just didn't want to finish. But instead of being honest and working something out, you ghosted her. Then, when she dragged you to court, you made up this story about mold. Your Honor, I'm not finished. The problem with lying, Mr. Chun, is that you need to be good at it. You need evidence to support your story. You have no photos of this mold. No written estimate. No calls to the client. Nothing. Meanwhile, She has an independent inspector's report, phone records, and a written contract. The inspector could be lying. Could be. But he's a licensed professional with no connection to this case. You, on the other hand, have every reason to make up a story. Ms. Richardson, how much are you suing for? $5,000, Your Honor. $2,500 that I paid him, and $2,500 to hire another contractor to fix what he damaged and complete the job. Do you have an estimate from another contractor? Yes, Your Honor. She produced yet another document. This is from Garcia Construction. They quote $3,200 to complete the work and repair the damage Mr. Chun caused. Judge Santos reviewed the estimate. Mr. Chun, did you damage anything in this kitchen beyond the normal scope of renovation? I don't think so. You don't think so? Ms. Richardson, what damage are we talking about? Your Honor, when he ripped out the old cabinets, he also damaged the drywall beyond what was necessary. He broke tiles on the floor. He left the plumbing disconnected improperly. And now there's water damage to the subfloor. The new contractor says all of this has to be fixed before they can proceed. Mr. Chun, sometimes things break during construction. That's normal. Breaking a few tiles might be normal. But leaving plumbing disconnected? Causing water damage? That's negligence, sir. That's not doing your job properly before you abandoned it. Judge Santos flipped through her notes, then looked up at both parties. Here's my ruling. Mr. Chun, I find you liable for breach of contract and negligent work. You took Ms. Richardson's money, you failed to complete the work, and you failed to communicate. Your story about mold is not credible. And even if it were true, you failed to document it or properly communicate with your client about it. But, Your Honor, I said I'm not finished. However, Ms. Richardson, you're asking for $5,000. The contract was for $5,000 total. You paid $2,500. The new estimate is $3,200. That means your actual damages are $2,500 that you paid, plus the difference between what the job should have cost and what it's now going to cost. Judge Santos did the math on her paper. The original job was $5,000. You paid half. If Mr. Chun had finished properly, you'd owe him another $2,500. But now it's going to cost $3,200 to complete. The difference is $700. Plus the $2,500 you already paid. That's a total of $3,200 in damages. I'm awarding you $3,200, Ms. Richardson. Mr. Chun, you have 30 days to pay this judgment. If you fail to pay, Ms. Richardson can garnish your wages or put a lien on any property you own. Do you understand? Mr. Chun nodded silently, his face red. Let me give you some advice, Mr. Chun. You're clearly capable of doing good work. You did fine for those first 2 weeks. But this business you're in requires trust. When you take someone's money and disappear, when you make up excuses instead of being honest, you destroy that trust. Word gets around. Pretty soon, nobody will hire you. She turned to Ms. Richardson. And Ms. Richardson, I hope you've learned something too. Always check contractor licenses. Always get references and actually call them. Never pay more than 30% upfront, no matter what they say. And get everything in writing, every change order, every additional cost. Everything. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. This case is concluded. Next case. As they filed out of the courtroom, Ms. Richardson felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't just about the money, though that certainly mattered. It was about being heard, being believed, and seeing justice done. She thought about her kitchen, still torn apart, still waiting. But now she had the means to fix it properly. In the hallway, Mr. Chen's wife was waiting for him. What happened? I have to pay her $3,200. I told you this would happen. I told you not to take that other job before finishing hers. I told you to call her back. Why don't you ever listen? He had no answer. Meanwhile, Ms. Richardson called Garcia Construction from the courthouse steps. Hello. This is Sarah Richardson. We spoke about my kitchen. I'd like to schedule the work. The judge just awarded me the funds. When can you start? We can start Monday morning, Ms. Richardson. We'll have your kitchen looking beautiful in 3 weeks. I guarantee it. Thank you. And one more thing, everything in writing, right? The contractor laughed. Everything in writing. That's the way we do business. As she walked to her car, Sarah thought about the past 6 months of frustration, anger, and cold takeout meals. But she also thought about how she'd stood up for herself, how she'd documented everything, and how she'd persevered. Judge Santos was right. She had learned something. She'd learned that contracts matter, that documentation matters, and that sometimes you have to fight for what's right. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in her completed kitchen. New cabinets, new countertops, new floor. Everything exactly as she'd imagined. Garcia Construction had been true to their word. The kitchen was perfect. She thought briefly about Mr. Chun, wondered if he'd learned anything from the experience. Probably not. Some people never did. But that wasn't her problem anymore. She had her kitchen back. She had justice. And tonight, for the first time in 6 months, she was going to cook a real meal in her own home. As she chopped vegetables for dinner, her phone rang. It was her sister. "How's the kitchen?" "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." "And the whole court thing? Was it worth it?" Sarah looked around her beautiful new kitchen and smiled. "Every single minute." The end.